piece this video together now. I noticed that it was 41% were scored on time. So like that's definitely something like we can work on. I'm not sure if you need some support on that. If you do,
it's just the time, like the time to do it. Like I often find that I don't have the time to do it. Or one, students are submitting checkpoints that are like from old projects and they're just sitting in a bank, and you're like, oh great, you worked. Like, I'm glad you worked on it, but I tell students, I'm like, I'm not grading this because you were given the opportunity to come to office hours. Like they have like a whole set of opportunities, and when they miss that, that becomes like a secondary. So, and I'm super duper aware of that data point for me. So one, it's a timing thing. Two, it's things being submitted that are old projects, and then three, I'd say that it was probably when things are submitted that I'm not even grading. It's like sometimes we'll have a checkpoint that's like Socratic preparation. I give them notes, so we do it in class, but then there's nothing to turn in. Some students just want to hit submit on it. And so I'm like, I'm not checking this crap. We don't have time for me to check nothing there. I'm not going to give you a green because I don't have it. It's a physical paper that you haven't turned in.
Is there a way that we can, like, when you push content forward to students, do you do it like whole scale, like everything?
I always do it whole, because I don't want to give it to part of the class and not give it to the other part, because if another student wants to preview it, I don't know who those students are that want to preview it before they come to school.
Got it.
Or those who have to preview it like Learning Center. So make sure that everything's like always accessible to everybody, and that's when I'm able to like send scaffolds.
And can you manipulate the due date for each?
No.
No, it's all.
No, if
it goes by the day.
Yeah. So that's just like, and that's really, really hard with our modified kids. Because like their stuff is like, I intentionally won't grade it because I'll have to give it a red, but like they get extra time.
Right.
But it's submitted, so I just leave it there so that it doesn't go red. And I don't want it to go green because it isn't done.
Got it.
They're just getting there more time. So that's like the trickier part with like writing assignments.
The writing assignments piece. Anytime there's a writing assignment from now on, if you could try to do like an in-class time write, just so you have them started on something. And even if you say this is an in-class time write, you can come to class with it completed before. That's okay, you can work on it in class. But do all the pre-work in class before, and give them a class block to do it in class. So treat it like a time. Do you have time writes in your curriculum? They do it in English.
No. I built one into my curriculum because I thought it was necessary because of hers, but because it goes into Crane's class. It's more so like they're getting chances, like we're annotating document sets and doing all of these things, and then they're doing like the checkpoint in class, and then some students are honestly just like not doing it, and I'm not able to get around to them. Especially in my end of the day freshman class, there's just so many high needs, and I'm spending so much of my time with Cameron doing de-escalation. So that's the class set. But for the most part, most of our checkpoints are like live. I put it up at the computer and we just re-roll live, and I'm like, oh, you've done that, you're done, boop, moving on.
Got it. So you're doing. So
most of my checkpoint stuff that I've always done in class, when I section kids, is live. That's why when I was super confused when we talking about it, you were like, you already do this. And then Crane came over, she's like, he's not talking about when you do your one thing. The super table, all that stuff. I give live feedback when I'm doing that.
And that's that's part of aggressive monitoring. We call it two different things, but that is the alley, the vein, the street, the road we want to live on for the rest of this year.
Yeah, in-class stuff is easy. It's like when they're submitting stuff in mentor time, and then I don't have like prep until like, and then it's like, well, now we're 48 hours out.
Right, the thing I want to get to is like that stuff all lives in class. Like have them write time, we'll call it time right, whatever you have to do. This assignment, we're doing it right now, and we're just pushing the pace and we're walking around doing that same feedback. I'll share you on a practice with Leon, and then our next coaching meeting, we'll actually practice to how to go around giving like feedback for claim and or piece of evidence, something like in class. I think you do it.
No, we do that in class. I'm just saying there are like, 33 freshmen in my like last class of the day. Like the chances are like Mariah hasn't annotated the text.
Right.
And Angela is written, she's on her like third checkpoint. They're very different places.
What?
So it's not that there's an issue with aggressive monitoring and feedback, it's that Mariah's probably gonna take that and go into Learning Center and work on a piece of it, and then Angel's gonna be like, well, I wanna get ahead of mentor group. It's not that it's not living here, it's that there's additional work being done outside of here, or catch-up work that's being done outside of here, and that's the part. But yeah, everything else gets done in class.
Got it. Alright, so I need to see that. I would like to make a note, just if you're doing an assignment that's like annotation or writing in class, if I can just see it, because then I don't want to speak on something that I haven't like witnessed.
Okay.
I want to be able to give you really good advice on something, or say like, I think this might be as good as it gets, and we can leave it at that. But I would like to see it before I work on that gap.
Okay, something specific.
If you can give me a date now, like I don't know if it's coming up soon, or.
You're talking about like specifically like looking at annotation, is there like a skill you want to specifically look at?
Whatever you're doing, like that you think like this is one of those times where the monitoring is tricky in that specific class. If you're doing something like fun and easy and they're rolling with it, that's not gonna be helpful for this conversation.
I gotta think on that.
Good.
I was talking about something where monitoring is tricky in class.
Like a writing assignment or an annotation set, something like that, where people can potentially be in different places all at the same time. And
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I hear what you're saying.
Think about it.
I'm trying to think of what, like how you would, because like where I'm having issues, I don't think that will fix it, because like there aren't readings that are scaffolded low enough provided for some of our students, and then there are just such severe behaviors in the same class that need these like even a modified schedule, modified curriculum, that I don't know if it's aggressive monitoring is the thing that's going to change that.
Well, let's give it a try. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think it addresses a lot. I don't think it's a cure-all for everything, but it is something that I want to make sure everybody in this building has in their tool belt for sure. So like, I want to see people execute their aggressive monitor. I want to see them execute at a high level. Is it gonna fix everything? No, but that's the skill that I need to make sure that everybody at Olympus has.
No, I was confused at what you were asking. I thought you were like asking where is my struggle at, and like it's like you just want to see me execute aggressive.
Right.
I feel very confident in aggressive monitoring.
Well, let's do it.
Like I feel super confident in it.
So that's what I'll be looking for.
Okay.
Upcoming. So aggressive monitor is a skill. I had a question on the COG skill that I looked at for some of the checkpoints. I noticed that there weren't clear COG skill connections for the simulation. I wasn't sure like where in the curriculum that students were tying that activity to COG skill. Point of view and purpose.
Yep, we did a whole, they actually did a whole thing on my slideshow that you're in for. There's a whole content about point of view, purpose, and it was posted on my agenda board.
Great, so thank you for that clarification. I'm gonna write that in now. One of the checkpoints in that course that I looked at for a sample of student data was on selection of evidence. It was the first checkpoint.
For the French Revolution?
Let me pull it up. And like most students were scored green. I noticed they all had thematic statements that were the same, but I didn't see any selection of evidence. So I was wondering if you were kind of modifying those grades, or let's take a look at it.
I don't understand. Yeah, I'm not understanding what you're saying.
How come Jordan Rice comes up before you?
Revolution's essay. It's so funny because when I like look at this data, it freaks me out at first. Like I like look at this and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like a whole page of red. But then I'm like, oh wait, there's like so many students that like, there's a ton of green, right? It's just like
you moved your data in the last week and a half, like a huge chunk. So I'm not like your PFAs attempted and your scored assignments, just they were hovering 50s, 60s, and they're all up this week.
I didn't even know that, to be honest. separate resolution. So the cog skill is integration of evidence, is what you mean.
Yes. Can I read the first one? Yes.
So they're like, so are you talking about like the sentence structure around it, or are you talking about how they have actually like integrated their evidence?
How they integrated evidence, because the first part seems like they either workshopped it together. It's almost all the same in all classes.
So for this one, because they weren't graded on claim, I gave them the claim, they had to come up with the subclaim.
Right.
So they got the claim, and then they had to come up with their own subclaim, did a share aloud, and then they were given a grid at which they found evidence. So they selected their evidence pieces, and then they had to embed evidence. So the evidence just has to basically be relevant is the most important thing. So that it supports, like right here, right? Like the advances of loans live right. Essentially, the king kept on worsening. Oh, you're talking about how they all say essentially? It looks like they all have similar.
I don't mind that. It was, let's look at the actual selection of, like the evidence they selected, does it match with the claim? Because when I looked at it, maybe they were still working, but a lot of them, they had a thesis that was the same, but they didn't have anything after. But they also weren't graded, so maybe you gave feedback and they revisited in the last week. Actually, I don't even see it. Is it in this first one here?
What?
It's not.
Yeah, this is where they did integration of evidence.
Yeah, it wasn't like that before, so I'm glad that you guys have been working. And look at all these students.
They haven't checked on checkpoint one since like last week. They haven't done it, like this, none of this is this week. This all was done before the simulation, so this was like 2 weeks ago.
Got it. So let's look in Trayvon.
Oh, you're looking at Modern World 2.
So it says one here.
Yeah, they mislabeled them. And I asked you to fix it, it's not gonna get fixed.
Is that we can't fix it now?
Because it's not a them thing. They said that this was like an our school thing when it was like when they were assigned and bucketed. And so I asked Tiffany about it and she didn't know either. And I was like, dang it!
Yeah.
So I was like, it's not worth like asking them again to fix it.
So this course, Modern World 1, is actually named Modern World 2.
Yeah. And then that's my Modern World 2. That's my Modern World 2 modified is under 2 now.
So
and then 3, yeah.
Is Modern World 1?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. How's she doing? Typically.
Middle of the road.
Middle? Okay, that's a good one. Oh, yes, you scored it. It's perfect. Primary classes.
Where's your evidence from the document sets? Separate evidence from claim.
Right. This is it. You're doing it. And they all have feedback like this?
Probably not actually, because some of them do hand ones, so they do their corrections in their hand.
This is a.
Yeah, you see how they all have their format? I'm so excited they're using their formulas.
That's great. That's how you learn.
Well, because this is like, super important for like AP testing, and like they really struggle with, because before I was having them do like more formal styling with like titles and things like that, and they were really struggling with it, and they're doing document sets because I aligned it more with what they need for the AP test.
That's great.
That's okay?
No, they have the formula. Great. So they have the scaffold there, and it's like their first real at bat at this.
This is their first, yeah. They haven't written an essay yet in this class.
Great. The best. Perfect. I'm super happy. What's our next step to build in some rigor here for those 9th graders?
The next step to building rigor?
We're going to build. The next time they have to write a paragraph and say evidence, like how do we incorporate rigor into that activity?
So now they know my expectations, so I took them down. They used to be on this board, and it used to be like but they weren't this, right? They were formulas. So now it's off the board with like their plugins, so now they have to like rely on one. I have to know the formula and when to use the formula. So I think it's when like addressing the problem, so they're problem solving. It's super important when you're a writer. People forget that it's so much problem solving and math skills, like in a weird way. And then like upping the rigor is they're actually not going to be given, obviously, their next at bat for writing is coming up in 1 week, and they're going to be building their own claims. So now they know how to integrate their evidence. They have to build their claims so that it flows, because, right, I knew which claim was going to fit into the evidence. So now they're going to have to write a claim and make sure their evidence fits it.
And how are you gonna walk them through that process? Let's practice. Can we practice that now? We take like 5 minutes to like, you know where you're going with this. I just wanna.
Oh yeah, I have a whole thing for it.
That's perfect.
I don't know if I have it. I don't know if I have it ready for you. Hold on.
If it's not printed, it's fine. We can look at it on the.
I'm old school.
Nah, you, Leon, Coach, have those, and I love it.
So, oh, this is the wrong one. Ours is right. How do I write an introduction? Nope, this is. I have one that's based off French Revolution. It looks exactly the same, but it's gonna look like this. So, how do I write an introduction? They've never written an introduction essentially in my class. So, my assumption is to assume that they don't know how. And if they do know how, that maybe they have habits that we want to see like either broken or modified, or we want to give them better tools so they have great habits. So their next at bat is actually going to be like, when they're writing, it's going to be looking at writing holistically. So they have, oh man, I hate being caught off guard. It makes me feel like I'm not prepared.
You're super prepared.
I'm
A
really
week out,
prepared.
you have the paperwork there, and don't worry about that.
But anywho, so they're gonna look at their document holistically and see how they wanna break down their paragraphs, and we're just gonna do a standard breakdown. So it's gonna make, claim's gonna be 2 parts, 2-part subclaim. Like the French Revolution was successful because the king was beheaded and this happened.
Right.
And they're gonna break those down into their separate 2 paragraphs, right? So when they go back to do their writing sections, they're gonna have to figure out how they can write that as a claim. Like, oh, the beheaded part, I gotta bring it down here. And that's where all these come in. They show you how to plug and play. So it'll be like, if you follow them, what is the question you're being asked? Then they're gonna put in their question. Come up with an opening statement or a hook. And that tells them, how are you gonna come up with that? So the scaffold for it is like, these are the steps I want. Then I have a secondary scaffolded version where some kids actually get an exemplar on the back. And then this one tells you, so they're gonna fill up this sheet to get this one. And this one says, sentence 1 is in box 2. That's your hook. So you go, steal your box 2, plug it in. So the students who don't need the scaffold aren't going to get the exemplar on the back. Students that need it will get that. Every student is going to get this for their first introduction because they've never written one. And I want it to be a historical style introduction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Do you have a teacher exemplar of what that introduction would look like a high level one? Just
yeah, I have all of this stuff. I
you just
don't
want
know where.
you asked me what I want to
Did I need
don't
to
bring
prepare
anything.
anything?
Yep.
Because like this stuff is from my Modern World 1, but then that's from my Modern World 2, like trenches. So I don't know what I did to mess up my stuff.
Just modern world 2 stuff.
That's just, I think this is all one. But I just saw genocide. I mean, Rwanda genocide.
Rwanda genocide, yeah.
I don't cover genocide in Modern World 1, but they learn about the Congo, and you can't really talk about the Congo without saying like, because the Congo was imperialized, it led to like feuding like near there, and Rwanda is a small place connected to the Congo, and blah 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 blah. So we do like a 1-day lesson on Rwanda. They get to like look for it, and then they're like, oh, we can learn that next year, and it's like just like it's like that buy-in. That buy-in's so important. Well, there's my French Revolution thing. Anywho, you get the gist.
I do.
Oh, and then I do an essay vocab. This is also part of it. I know it sounds really elementary, but I think it's really important for them to say, this doesn't connect to a cog skill. This just connects to fundamentals.
Actually, I think, yeah, this is elementary, but it gives students a vocabulary and things that they need to internalize what you're asking them to do. So like, it's just scaffolding. So I get it's elementary, but a lot of things we do, like building the scaffold, is good. I want to boost a little rigor for 9th graders in the other process, and I think we can do part of that with a show call. So I would like you to use the same format that you built already, because it has these definitions and the explanations. I don't know where it is. It might be in that one. The one that they're going to get with the exemplar on the back for the scaffolded one. If we can show them an example and have them tell you like what's wrong with this
what's missing,
Yeah, so like have them actually do the cognitive work of saying, this introduction is weak because the hook and the claim is too generic. It says there's always something like this or whatever, like that you said, you explicitly name that you don't want to see in their introduction. That takes the lift off of you and the scaffold and puts it on them and see if they can start to like flex some of those muscles and see if they understand it at a higher level, right? So we show them one that needs to be fixed and 2 good ones. What's this do well? Like something
like an introductory paragraph?
Mm-hmm.
My only concern with that is I feel like so many students are going to copy it.
Yes.
So I gotta pick a different topic.
We could do a different topic. We could do a different topic, and then you can actually use theirs to have them grade before they roll out the whole lesson. That makes sense. So the first at bat would be a week one on a different topic. Anything else? I can rate it if you want.
Oh no! I'm just thinking about where this would like.
It would live.
No, where this would fit into my time because like now we're in a time crunch because like they have a hard deadline for this project.
Yep. When's the deadline? You want to?
Deadline for this is. The deadline for it is the 20th.
This will take 8 minutes.
For some students.
For the chunk of middle students, it will. And what it will do is it will provide realistically a 4-minute at bat for some of our lower performance students. They'll get to see it and maybe they get to engage around a little bit. Maybe they won't understand it fully. But that batch of students who are our middle students, if we could get them to understand how to write a paragraph, it's just an at bat. And like, they don't have to fully understand and master it now because they're gonna have, in your class, you have them write a lot, which I really like. They're gonna have multiple at bats to get this skill, and we just wanna make sure that there's a certain baseline by the time we get into 10th grade. I know that's something you're committed to because you really want them to be ready for AP courses, which is why you build in certain things. So like just holding that line of rigor and like seeing if we can bump it up a little bit so that they are in the right place at the end of 9th grade, so that at the end of 10th grade, they're ready to run for the AP stuff.
Yeah, this is interesting. It's the only time I've ever heard this feedback.
What
I've been
feedback?
told my class is too rigorous.
Who told you that? Me?
No, just all my coaching meetings I've ever had.
Really?
And, yeah. And like parent phone calls and freakouts where it's just like, your class is too hard.
That's
I'm
good.
like, okay.
I'm pushing you because you can, like, not you, but yep. I'll introduce you to a former student who her mom called up, yelled at me because class is too hard. Told me her daughter would never be a critical thinker. I'm like, you're wrong. Sorry.
That's like offensive.
She's trying to support. Eventually, like, mom and I never really fixed our relationship, but Sue and I are fine. Like, married, pregnant with our first kid now. Yeah, having a good life. Been a critical thinker. Did a great job. We won that one. Team critical thinkers won. Parents that say no.
I feel like, I don't know what my action items are because I got a lot of them. They were
you,
like
you really. Oh, let's name them.
aggressive monitoring.
I want to see aggressive monitoring, and then we're working on just building out a template for students to see, not a template, an exemplar for students to match the skills you're teaching them and writing an introduction and actually giving that and grading it kind of. Why is this strong, why is this weak? So your action item is to.
So I'm testing them on it because I'm not teaching them how to do it at all. I'm just giving them to and saying what's wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
So pre-test.
Yep.
Okay.
And we can do a whole class.
And then feedback.
The feedback cycle seems like you have a handle on it.
No, I'm really bad at it.
All right. Well,
I don't have time. So I need to schedule out time to do it.
yes, I'm gonna see if we can find a way to have aggressive monitoring live in both of those buckets. I think there's a way to monitor aggressively and put in scores that allows us to save time.
I hear what you're saying. But I do aggressive monitor. I'm not saying
No,
it's wrong at
I
all.
know.
I'm saying that like I will aggressively monitor on Monday.
Yep.
Not see a freshman then again until Thursday.
Right, because of the schedule.
Yeah.
Yep.
So like even if I'm doing aggressive monitoring, they still like, and I'm living on the grade then, they're still submitting stuff before Thursday.
Yep.
It's just like our weird double class gap things like that. So like
That
that's where
happens.
aggressive things like, so that could be like, Carlson, you need to grade at school on these days regardless,
Mhm.
because that is like, oh, I can do that, but
Yeah.
I can't only grade for aggressive monitoring because I wouldn't see them for more than 48 hours.
If they're submitting things before. My push here is to see if we can figure out a way where they're all submitting things all one time in class.
But I'm
and
saying the
while
kids that
you're-
don't do their work, they should still be allowed to do it
No,
in
they are.
mentor
No,
time.
and they are, but the bulk of students will get in class, and they'll actually have feedback by the time they.
Yeah, most of them are
they
gonna do
leave
that.
class.
Yeah.
I have a meeting, and I have a video. That's not what I wanted to show you though.